Welcome back to Build for Health, where we pull back the curtain on what it takes to build a strong, healthy body and a fitness routine that sticks. I'm Pete Wright, here with Coach Srdjan Injac, and today is Listener Question Day. Are you excited for this?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like we've been talking about it for weeks. Our very first Listener Question Day. And we've got a bit of a stack of them, so let's go ahead and dig in. They're all over the place. Mm-hmm. I present them essentially unsorted. Let's just see what we come up with. First one comes from Anonymous. What is the strategic difference between a workout of high reps at a very low weight and a workout that has you do what you barely can at a very high weight? Are there different outcomes, different times you would use each workout?
Okay, so yes, there are different outcomes. It depends on your goals, pretty much. Mm-hmm. So I like to mix them up and do everything. So you have the clients who would come in and they want to just gain strength. And some of them, they want to get size. And then you have some that would just like to get some muscle endurance. So all these different goals will determine what kind of training you're going to, different types of workout and training you're going to do. So this is kind of how it works. And I like to have, my clients will always like to have strength and the size and to make sure they look good. And, they also can have some muscle endurance and things like that. So I do pretty much everything. And so they can kind of get the full package, right? Mm-hmm. So it depends. Like sometimes you have like bodybuilders, and then you have powerlifters and they train completely different because they have different goals. So this is kind of what the difference is when you go like high reps, low weights, or, go heavier weight, but then of course you can't go that many reps. Mm-hmm. So anything between like 4 to 8 reps, you're pretty much working on the strength. Anything that's over that, like anything between like 8 to 12 reps, now you're working on hypertrophy, on the size of the muscle. And then when you go higher, anywhere between 15 now going to 20 reps, you're pretty much working on the endurance of the muscle. So I like to combine all of them, and then you probably heard about people saying progressive overload, where, first set you warm up, you do about 15 to 20 reps, and the next set you add a little bit more weight, you do a little less reps, and then you keep going and you keep, increasing the weight and of course decreasing the reps. So that way you can kind of work on the strength and the size. So yes, there's a different times that you would use such workouts. And then there's a times when you just want to work on endurance. Like, you'll grab the battle rope and you'll go for a minute, which you like doing it, right?
So much. I dream about
Your favorite.
It's usually in the form of a noose.
So those are more of a, endurance. And mm-hmm. then, you do a ball slams and, you do a rower and skier and like things like that. So you do want to mix them up. It depends, like I said, what the goal is on the client. Okay. You have the clients that want to lose weight, some gain weight. So that's kind of the difference.
What's interesting to me, though, is that you gave me 3 different strategies. The first one, if you're doing 4 to 8 reps, presumably at the heaviest weight you can do.
Yes.
Then you're working on strength.
Yes.
Not size. I would have assumed that size is this. It would be doing if you're lifting the heavy weights, you're working towards size, but that's not what you're doing. Size is a step down.
No, exactly. Because you just watch. Sometimes it's interesting watching the powerlifters train, and then you watch bodybuilders train, mm-hmm. And you see the bodybuilders.
They have different strategies.
So many different reps. Where powerlifters, they're lifting just so they can do that one rep, that heavy weight, as heavy as they can do, just one rep. And they're pretty strong, but you don't see them not all of them are like that big, huge, just like a bodybuilder.
Right.
Bodybuilders are just humongous. And where the powerlifters can be sometimes stronger, but they're a lot smaller, a lot, less muscle on them. And you'd be like, well, sometimes people look at it like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But it's a different type of training. So Yeah, a lot of people think, as soon as they lift right away the heavy weights, and like, oh my God, they're just going to blow up and like be huge. I'm like, not really quite how it works.
Okay. And the third was going into the
Endurance.
20 reps.
Yeah.
That's endurance. So you're not looking at size at all. Well,
Yes.
maybe there's probably some size in there, but really you're looking at toning the muscles for long use.
So you're able to do, activity over a long period of time and not fatigue, after like 30 seconds or, a minute. So you can last a lot longer.
Okay. Good question. It's nice to start with the basics that I feel like I don't even have a clear understanding of. Next question comes from Jakey. Is it okay if I just copy what other people are doing in the gym until I get the hang of it? I'm gathering from this episode that this is a bad idea. I think Jakey's referring to, we talked about recording yourself, just getting form right. This was from our form episode.
Well, I know I also talked about saying, well, it is kind of bad idea because you don't know if you have to watch what others are doing. That means you don't really know what if you're doing it right or not, and you are just
which also means you don't know if they know how to do it right.
Exactly. So I wouldn't be copying anybody. Like if you really need help, then I would look for a trainer or somebody that can actually explain to you how to do it. And explain in the way that actually makes sense to you. Because there's a lot of people, they think they know what they're doing and they're trying to explanation, but they don't really know how to explain because they're not even 100% sure why they're doing the way they're doing it. They might have seen it from somebody else and think that now they know exactly what they're doing, but they don't. And I've seen a lot of people like that. So I really wouldn't copying. And if you do it and just it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. So, I wouldn't do that. I would definitely, if you need help, ask for help.
Who do you trust online, or how do you find somebody to trust online? Because I imagine the second best to watching somebody in a gym is to go on YouTube and say, how do you do this squat with weight? Like what's proper form? But how do you know that they're doing it right?
You don't. You would think that I see a lot of videos on YouTube and on the Instagram and stuff like that, and I will see all these followers that they have, and everyone's saying like, "Oh my God, I have to try that, and that looks great," and all that stuff. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. I'm like, I don't think that's right. So sometimes I would challenge them, those individuals, and they really don't like to be challenged. Some of them, would call me ignorant and all that stuff, and that I don't know how to take the advice and all that. I'm just trying to make a conversation and see why they think that that's the right form, what they're looking like. Just maybe there's something that I missed. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people that we would actually have a good conversation and they explain their side, why they think this is a good form and why I think so. We would actually have a good conversation, and other people that are looking at that conversation would also respond and be like, hey, I'm glad you guys are having this conversation. I'm learning a lot and stuff like that. So you want to look for the people that are open-minded like that, and then I would get the messages from those people saying, hey, thank you for being respectful and having this conversation with me. I had a lot of fun and stuff like that. It made me look at things differently and all that stuff. So it's great. But if you don't really know, you wouldn't know if they're doing it right or wrong,
Yeah, right.
So it's hard.
Do you have any vetted sources that you send people to learn new exercises? Or is it really just go to a gym, find a trainer, ask a question?
I would actually have to look. There are a few people on Instagram that I actually do follow that are actually really good. Okay. That I do recommend. And usually when my clients ask me about that, like I would have them follow some of the people. And
we should put those in the notes, like just so you have a resource. If you don't live in or near Hillsborough, let's give you a resource of some folks that you trust.
Yeah, definitely. There are some people that I think they're really amazing. They're really good at what they do.
Awesome. Let us move on then to a question from Patrick B. I have been lifting for a year and I'm definitely stronger, but I still can't tell if my form is good enough. Is there a simple checklist I can use without filming myself every time? I haven't been injured, but I feel clumsy and I sometimes question whether I'm locked in. Also, sometimes my workouts feel completely different week to week. One day, everything feels light. Another day, the warm up feels like a max lift. Is that normal, or am I doing something wrong with recovery and nutrition? It's kind of a lot wrapped up in that one.
Yeah, well, it is normal that you're going to have those weeks when everything just feels heavy. Like my last week was like a really crappy week. I felt like whatever I did, everything was just heavy. I didn't have energy. So, and like I said, nothing, like every week is going to might be a little bit different. And that all depends, like mentioned the recovery and the nutrition. If you ate right, if you ate enough, if you recovered well, if you slept enough, if you drink enough water, if maybe there's a stress at work or at home, and all these things can affect your workouts and how you feel that week, and then you're going to wake up and you might not feel 100%. And then you're going to go to a gym and you're going to try to do warm up and it just feels heavy. You're just tired. You're fatigued. You haven't really recovered the proper way. Maybe the week before you felt great. Everything was great. Nutrition was on point. You got plenty of sleep, plenty of rest. And it's just normal. That's how it is. You shouldn't be discouraged. If that week just everything feels heavy, just stay at that weight. Just kind of listen to your body. If the body says no, it's too much, then just stay at that weight. It doesn't matter that last week, you lifted like 20 pounds heavier, maybe. If you don't feel it, it's fine. It's just important that you're there, that you got the workout. That's the most important part, being consistent. Not every week is going to be the same. Not every workout is going to be amazing, the best workout you ever had. There's going to be some really crappy workouts, and that's totally fine. That's okay. It happens to all of us. But and also when he says about the form. So if you can
let's take that on.
If you're working with somebody and you have someone that knows the form and you trust them, then you can have them look at it and be like, hey, check out my form. Tell me if you see something that I'm not seeing, I'm not feeling right. Tell them, hey, I'm feeling kind of this area, stuff like that. Can you just tell me, let me know what you think? Find somebody that knows and have them check out your form. I usually recommend people to learn when they're doing a certain exercise or muscle groups, to learn about those muscle groups, where they're located, the actions that it does, where it's the origin and insertion of the muscle. So that way you can kind of understand better. And then when you execute the exercise, you'll know, like right now, like I don't even have to film myself or look at it. By just doing it, I can feel it. And I'm like, that doesn't feel right. I didn't feel at the right spot. My form's probably not good. Like I can tell by just feeling it. I can tell if the form was good or not.
Well, that's the thing that's like feels subtly dangerous, right? Is because depending on the exercise you're doing, moving just a half inch is going to target a completely different muscle, right? Like, it just feels some of the moves, if you're not, locked in, there's risk.
Yes. Yeah, there are risks for every exercise. So you'll know exactly, like I said, usually, and this when I'm like correcting your form. And if I say move forward or do that, sometimes I'm thinking just like a half an inch, just a little bit, just a small modification to the exercise. It can make a whole different, like you can feel totally, completely at the different spot. So you have to know where this, specific exercise, when you do it, where it's supposed to feel it. And if you feel anywhere else, it's like you should probably stop, because you shouldn't be feeling it at that spot. Usually people will just keep continuing, like, okay, maybe it's fine. So yeah, if it doesn't feel right, just stop.
Thank you, Patrick, for the question. Congratulations on lifting for a year. Even that's a fantastic success story. Keep it up. Keep it up. Keep it up.
Yes.
Next one comes from Olga. After knee surgery, my physical therapist gave me a bunch of very small, very boring isolation exercises. Once I was cleared, I stopped doing them because I was eager to get back to real training. Did I mess up? Should those micro movements remain a permanent part of my program? Got some PT oriented question for you here.
Yes, and I love those because I have a bad knee. I went through a lot of physical therapy, and let me tell you, you don't really have to do all of those exercises that you did. It's really good if you can actually keep some of them and keep doing them, just to make sure, that you're strengthening that knee, that even though it's fine, you're not in the physical therapy now and you can do more. I would sometimes still use those exercises as a warm-up to warm up my knee. And then I would go into doing other bigger exercises. But that's why now that you have a bad knee and you're coming back from injury and stuff like that, surgery, that you have to really pay attention to your form and make sure that everything you do is the right way, because you don't want to re-injure that again, because it's a lot easier now to re-injure the knee that you already had surgery on, right? I feel like once you injure something like that and you go through that, it's never really the same again. You might feel okay and good, but you should definitely be careful how much weight you're putting on that and making sure that you're doing everything right. I mean, you can still progress and you can still gain size and strength, but being more careful about how you do it. And then also use those PT exercises sometimes as a warm-up, and you can easily use them at the end. But yeah, there are some of them that I still like doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be clear when you mess up. If you're not hurting, you didn't mess up. You're probably fine. You'll know.
You'll know, because it really doesn't really take that much to re-injure.
Right.
Like it's just that one extra rep where you feel like, yeah, I can do one more. And you really don't need to, but you push it too hard, and then, maybe the knee will cave in or go out too much. And it takes just a half a second, and then you'll hear something to click, and that's it. It's like, I really didn't have to do that. Like
the knee
I should have stopped.
Cave in, man.
Oh,
really?
It depends. Like, especially if you're doing like a leg press and stuff like that, or it's just. So don't force it, because there's one question where I could probably go into that now.
Here we go. Form sounds important. I like that. I read it with a little more sass than probably was intended. Form sounds important, but isn't it also kind of relative? Powerlifters, CrossFit athletes, and bodybuilders all have slightly different forms for the same movement. So how do we know which one is actually, quote, right?
So I'm going to tell you this whole story. When I went for a physical therapy for my shoulders, the physical therapist kind of looked at me. It was very first time. I've never met the guy. I've never seen him. It was my first session. I walked in and he looked at me. He was like, CrossFit? And I'm like, excuse me? I'm like, what? He was like, CrossFit. You do CrossFit? I'm like, no. I'm like, why? Why do you think that? He was like, with your type of injury, it was like, and the way you look like an athlete, 98% of people that come through here with those injuries are from the CrossFit. And I was like, huh. I'm like, that's interesting. I'm like, do they really have that bad of a form? I'm like, are they all messing up their show? I'm like, whoa, that's bad. That's not good. I'm like, no, I don't do CrossFit. And he was like, wow. And I was like, okay. But that made me think about, how dangerous it is to execute. So this is the thing about the CrossFit. CrossFit is not really bad. CrossFit has always been around. It's been more for athletes, that knew what they were doing, and they were training for that, for like specific sports and stuff like that. And they had athletic trainers and stuff like that would train them how to execute those exercises right. Before you start doing snatches over your head, you learn how to deadlift, you learn how to squat, you learn all these things. So they know how to execute, and they know if they start doing it wrong, or if they need to stop, or if the weight's too heavy and all that stuff. And then it came out to a general population as like a new thing, and everyone's getting into it. And they just jump into these exercises that a lot of them don't even know how to execute, just the regular deadlift or a squat. And they're doing snatches and all these, powerful and exercises, and they were getting hurt. So, of course, they have a bad form. They don't really know how to, correct their form or know if they're doing it wrong or not. So I have nothing against like CrossFit. Their form is actually pretty good in other exercise. The only thing maybe that we like to make fun of CrossFit guys is like when they do pull-ups and they're doing all these swinging movements and crazy movements. They were like, all right, that's well crazy. And now they're just, because, they're, competing. So they have to do as many pull-ups. So that's the only way you're
so
going
you
to do
start
like
swinging as a
10 pull-ups
momentum.
if you do it that fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that's how you should do it. You should do it. And
that gets to the impossible question, though. I mean, this is a great question. Like, how do you know which one is right?
Yeah, but then you look at everyone else, like powerlifters and all that stuff. Like powerlifters, they have to have perfect form because they push like a lot of weight. That's just so much weight. And they cannot mess up their form. If they mess up their form, they're going to break some bones or joints and stuff like that with that much weight.
Yeah.
Try. So, they have a really good form. And then, bodybuilding. And of course, a lot of them they also have to have a good form. If they don't, they all get hurt. If they don't have a good form, they'll get all hurt. It's not like they don't get hurt. Bodybuilders get hurt all the time too. Powerlifters get hurt, hurt all the time. And CrossFit athletes, they get hurt. So you have to have the right form. So having a good form and teaching people, knowing when the form is compromised, that needs to be stopped, and knowing when that happens. So it's just, kind of that's.
Yeah, I mean, so I look at this question, I'm like, okay, so we don't know what Eaton is doing. Are you doing CrossFit? Then you should be working with your CrossFit coach to figure out how to do those exercises without hurting yourself, because that's really the bottom line. The form may actually change a little bit depending on context, depending on the amount of weight, depending on whatever, circumstances you're working toward. Is that even fair to say?
Yeah, it is, of course. And then if you're doing you have to learn the basic first. People like to jump in right away and they want to execute all these crazy exercises and like do Olympic exercise and snatching and all that stuff without even learning first how to properly do a deadlift and squat and shoulder press and all that stuff. So you have to take your time, learn first, build the foundation before you start building on top of the foundation, everything else. Understand the movement, the way the body moves and all that stuff. You have to learn that before you can advance. Right. If that makes sense. That's how you break down the movement into small pieces and then work on those big pieces and then start putting them together. Because here I'll do sometimes an exercise with the client. And if I see he's not getting right, I'm like, okay, let's break this now. Let's work just on this movement first and then that one. And then we'll start slowly putting them together. And until that started making sense to him, and it's almost like a reflex when he doesn't really think about it too much, then I start putting things together. But you have to, it's just people are sometimes not patient. They want to jump in right away because, CrossFit looks cool and all that stuff. And they just go in and they hurt themselves.
Yeah. Well, it leads us right into this next question, which I've been actually waiting for to ask you about this question, because one of the things that you tell me all the time is you have to give your body an excuse to change, right? You have to push and get to that point where you're telling your body, I need you to adapt to this new weight. This question comes from Tommy. Ego lifting gets a bad rap, but don't people sometimes need to push into risky territory if they want real gains? If you're always safe, aren't you just limiting your progress?
So you don't have to be in a risky position where you have to, you have to know there's a fine line between pushing your limits and pushing your body, and then pushing to the point where now you're going to get hurt. There's a point where you have to listen to your body when the body says, no, you need to stop. It means no. Because if you start lifting with your ego and lifting more than you can actually lift, that means if you break down your form and you start just swinging the weight and all that stuff, that's ego lifting. You're not going to even progress with that. It's just a matter of time before you get hurt. Because now, what muscle groups are you really working on? Now, when you're just lifting with everything you have, with, swinging it. And pretty much I always say you should be in control of the weight. Whenever the weight takes control over you, that's when you get hurt. So you can still be safe and still progress and see the progress and get stronger and bigger. I've actually seen more progress now that I know more about how to safely lift. Seen more progress than before. When I was younger, yeah, you go with the boys to the gym and all that stuff, and you're kind of competing with each other who's going to lift more, and you don't want to lift, lighter than the guy next to you. So, you're pushing it, or you're all lifting with the egos who can lift more and stuff like that. So that's not lifting. You're not going to progress that way. So there's a different way that you can also progress, right? There's like rest, pause sets, there are supersets, there are drop sets, there's all these different ways that you can progress and put that extra pressure on your muscle, because the strength and the size of the muscle is pretty much a response to the stress that you put on your body, right? So you can put enough stress where you can push your limits and still be safe and have the right form. So make sure that you don't compromise the form, and ego lifting is not going to help you advance. By swinging weights, you're always going to be swinging the same amount of weights. That weight's never going to get stronger, because you're not really working and isolating that muscle that you're supposed to be working on and isolating if you're just going to be swinging and using everything else around it. So how are you going to progress if you don't have the right form and you don't know how to isolate that muscle and make sure that that muscle does all the work?
The amount of weight you need to actually work a properly isolated muscle is disturbingly light. You don't you don't need much if you're targeting right.
If you're targeting right, because I've seen, for example, today I was explaining guys, showing him how to do exercise for the rear delts. Now, rear delts are back of your shoulders. They're a very small muscle. They're not really strong. There's nothing out there that you do that you lift with your rear delt. You pretty much use that muscle only when you're at the gym and you work on it here. So they load up the weight 50, 60, 70 pounds and they're pulling. I'm like, you're not really pulling with the rear delt. Rear delt is not that strong. It's all the muscles around it that you're pulling with your trapezium and with your other back muscles. They're bigger, stronger muscle. Rear delts, maybe you're doing like maybe 20% of the work. But then when I teach them how to isolate, oh my God, that weight goes down so fast. And they're like, oh my God, I can't even pull this. And it's like, it's 30 pounds. I'm like, because now you're able to isolate that muscle. And they were like, oh my God, this feels weird. I'm like, because he's like, I'm finally feeling the muscle I've never felt before. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Because you've never done anything like that to isolate that certain muscle and just feel that and work on that particular muscle group, So they get blown away. They're like, oh my God, and then they come next day and they're sore. It's like so weird. It's like right here, but I can't really point. And so you can just make sure your form is right. There's the different ways that you can progress and still be safe, but get stronger and bigger. So you don't have to do all the ego lifting. Like now, after so many years, you learn from your mistakes, and I learned the hard way. And now that I'm older, actually, I'm stronger and bigger than I ever was before when I was even younger. I didn't have the strength and I didn't have the size, and I'm a lot more safer. And I don't lift with my ego anymore. I stopped a long time ago, years ago. So I lift safe way. I'm still pretty safe, and I can still progress. So there is a way.
We've sort of reached the end of our questions proper. We have two more. One of them, I will say, to Darcy, who has a great question about people with ADHD who have trouble sticking to routines and want to build strength and consistency. And we are going to address that question. But Darcy, we're going to kick that one down the street a little bit, because we're going to do a whole episode and talk about neurodiversity in the gym. And we got a guest who's going to come on and help us do that. And we have one more question. Has there ever been any longitudinal research comparing behavior change adherence in individuals who set identity-based goals versus outcome-based goals in fitness? And we're going to take that one and expand on that too once we have the doc back. Yeah?
Yeah, definitely. I would like to talk to people about that too and what to focus on. And there are some research that have been done. And I'll point out a few researches that I actually found. And I was interested when I read that question. I'm like, I'm like, I know the answer because from the experience and from what I've seen, when the person comes with that identity-based goals where, they want to build identity around the behavior. Like they want to make sure that this becomes a lifestyle, they learn how to be consistent, lifting weight and all that stuff. Then, you have the outcome-based goals where people come in and say, I want to lose 20 pounds. And they have a specific target, what they want to, reach and what they want to accomplish. And that's it. It's like, so you are usually talk to those people about stuff like that. So we're going to expand more on that. Yeah. Next time.
I think Andrew with that question is talking to me. I have struggled all my life with identity versus outcome-based goals. And so that'll be a very useful conversation to have. So,
yeah, which one I would prefer and what happens when you focus on one and what happens when you focus on the other one. Because I've seen people focus on one and the other one and what the outcome actually is. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. And the one that I would definitely recommend that will help with the other one as well.
Yeah. So, well, don't tell us.
Yeah.
Crying out loud. Save it for the field, man.
I'll stop.
Okay.
It's hard for me to stop once I keep going.
I know. You get on a roll here. It's really good.
I know. I get too excited.
All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out, and thanks for sending in those questions. Don't forget, the link is in the show notes. Just swipe up in the show notes. You'll see the link to the form. You can ask questions completely anonymously. No shame, no judgment here. We are curious about your curiosity, so keep those questions coming in, and we'll keep these episodes coming. We sure appreciate you. We're glad you joined us today. And don't forget to subscribe and share. If you're just catching this on the website, we appreciate that. But subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, whatever. This is how we grow stronger together. Thanks for listening to Build for Health. On behalf of Srdjan and Injac, I'm Pete Wright. We'll see you next week right here in the gym.